Representative Eccles, you're recognized to present House Bill 2612.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. This bill has commonly...
I'm sorry, Representative Eccles, there is a proposed committee substitute. Without objection, we'll adopt that as the working draft. That will be the order. You're recognized to present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. This bill has commonly been referred to as the Unity Bill, or more recently as the Skinnity Bill, which is I kind of like. It's kind of funny. This bill is what has come out of the medical marijuana working group. It was passed unanimously out of the group. This will not be the last medical marijuana bill this committee will hear. The goal is not to fix every issue or to deal with every issue that could possibly come up with the creation of a new industry in the state of Oklahoma. The goal is to create a framework to which we could work off from there. And with that, I'll move adoption and yield for questions.
Do we have any questions? Seeing none, Representative Fugate, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. I apologize. I wish I'd had a little more time to kind of review this, but there's some provisions in here, for instance, for tracking inventory, and I'm thinking about the mom and pops involved, and the state's going to have an inventory tracking process, and would that be something that those mom and pops would have access to?
I'm glad you asked that. What's commonly been referred to, Representative, is what's commonly referred to as seed to sale tracking. Of approximately 33 states that have medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, 21 of them have some version of seed to sale tracking. There is a cost associated with seed to sale tracking. It's something mom and pops have been able to deal with in other states, and it was also part of a global agreement. There were an awful lot of things in the Unity Bill that mom and pops didn't want. Excessive financial disclosure, in my opinion, there were excessive financial disclosures in the bill. In my opinion, there were excessive regulations dealing with transportation licenses and things like that. All of those, as part of the agreement, were stripped out. The seed to sale tracking did stay in. The goal of seed to sale tracking is to avoid diversion and to make collection of taxes more orderly, things of that nature. What we've done inside this bill, there was also a problem with it. Inside the bill, it had originally said you had to have a experience in another medical marijuana state. Well, that would essentially cut out any Oklahoma entrepreneur that may come up with their own version of it, because obviously you could not have had, if you're an Oklahoma company, you could not have had experience in that because we just legalized the industry. So that's kind of what it is, and it's probably the part of the bill that I have the most consternation about. But I think given the overall quality, the overall product, and kind of how the negotiations fell down, I have no problem defending it.
You're recognized for a follow-up.
And I think that's fair to note, and it's very clear the amount of effort that has gone into this, and so please don't take any of my questions to indicate that I'm not pleased with the result. Just been struggling to go through it. A couple of other quick questions, if I may. Page 39, we prohibit the hazardous materials for extraction, but we don't really talk about the processes themselves and whether or not we would prohibit any kind of hazardous processes taking place. And I wonder if there's any concern about that or thought about that.
Thank you for that, Representative, and thank you for saying that too. I'm the first, and I appreciate you talking about the hard work, and you're going to see provisions of this bill that even I'm going to pick on and say that I'm not, we'll say I'm not crazy about them. Anytime you have a process this big, you're not looking for the perfect. You're looking for kind of that area that we can all coalesce around. So on the hazardous processes, I'm going to answer that directly in that that's something we punted to the OMMA. They would have rulemaking authority, but I am going to answer it globally for the committee. That was all part of a theory behind the Unity Bill or the Skinnity Bill or whatever we want to call it. We didn't want to get too deep into the details. And I have been pushing since the beginning to treat this industry like we do any other industry. I mean, it's now legal. The citizens of the state of Oklahoma have voted for it. It passed with an overwhelming fashion. And we don't micromanage on the legislative level a lot of the details. In other industries, we put that through the rulemaking process, and then we have legislative oversight. And my concern with micromanaging, and again, I probably was for when this changed. By the way, this is a big shift, because when I first started this, and I was very publicly not pleased with some decisions by the Department of Health, I was all about micromanaging it. And we had hearings where we went in and we nitpicked apart, for example, their decision on heavy metals when they used the California version for heavy metal testing, and Representative West was on that, and we just nitpicked them to death, and we brought in the Ag Department, and we got down to literally 4 heavy metals and said, this is what we want you to do. We issued a letter, said, you do this. Now, the AG has said you can't do that. We have to give them rulemaking authority. So even in this bill, so with that issue and some others, we didn't tell the Department of Health, you have to only test for these heavy metals. We said test for heavy metals. Now, I know from conversations with the Department of Health and with the director of the OMA, they're going to follow the directions of the legislature. They're only going to test for those 4. The reason I've even flipped my position on it is because in any other industry, that's why we'd hand it. So if a new heavy metal shows up in Oklahoma soil, then they should test for it. If an old heavy metal leaves Oklahoma soil, we should stop paying for that testing. It needs to be specific. And I think we're getting more from the regulators and understanding that this is a new industry. They're going to treat it like every other industry. And if they don't treat it like every other industry, there's going to be very bipartisan support to, I want to say it's something nicer than slap them down, but that's really kind of what we're talking about. We'll stand up and say, no, you can't do that. They're going to get treated like everybody else. So on that one specifically, I got asked that question today about burner processing, literally today by an individual. We do not outlaw that. Could the OMMA do that? I don't know, and I'm not an expert enough, but I know if they did, and I had enough people tell me they did the wrong thing, I'd become an expert, and then I deal with it that way.
You're recognized for one final follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. More holistically then, thinking about this, it's a comprehensive document, but as you have mentioned, it's still a work in progress. This is going to lay a framework for us to move forward, and I think that's wonderful. I'll just ask, I'll say it this way. I would love to spend some time with you after this to talk about other areas that we might need to address at some point in the future. I don't know that it needs to be part of this committee.
Well, Representative, I appreciate you saying that, and I do want to say publicly, you've already approached me. You've wanted to work on this. You've taken an interest, which I really appreciate. You've wanted to really dig into this issue, and I will also say I need more members willing to dig into the issue like you've expressed, because this truly has become a bipartisan issue up here. It's very difficult to know where someone would stand on some of the details based upon just R or D, because it really kind of transcends that. Most of us, the vast majority of us, are trying to implement the will of the people and trying to do it in a safe and effective way. And it's an industry that most of us don't know much about. So I could tell this committee, expect we'll be looking at a bill as to I'll be filing at least, I've talked to the chairman about filing at least 4 other medical marijuana bills. Hopefully we'll deal with next week to have vehicles alive so we can deal with issues as we go through everything from do we need to lower the tax rate? It's the only medical product that we charge city and state sales tax on, to how are we going to handle the disposal? We're going to need to deal with some of those issues. I think we have some cleanup to deal with in the Caregiver Act when we're dealing with individuals who are, for example, in assisted livings or things like that. I think we're going to have to deal with those issues. So I don't want this to think that, members, this is the last medical marijuana bill you're going to hear, and I can't stress this enough. I welcome any and all help, because Representative Fettgatter has been a huge help, Representative West has been a huge help, other members of the committee, Representative Loring, Representative Rosecrans, but I mean, it's a lot for one person to kind of take care of, so I'm willing to kick a lot of those ideas away and let somebody else take ownership of those issues. And Senator Brooks, Senator McCourtney, they're all working real hard on that. But I mean, this is an all hands on deck issue, and there are other issues to deal with. So, and I thank you. You've shown that willingness.
Representative Pfeiffer, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Eccles, wouldn't you agree that even though this is more condensed than it originally was, Skinnity is a silly name and we should just call it the Unity Bill and quit trying to come up with worse names than we already have?
We all know I love naming stuff.
All right, seeing no further questions, do I have a motion?
I'll
Gonna do pass?
I am on
In a
the committee.
second.
I'll second.
All right, will there be any discussion or debate? Seeing none, staff will open the queue for voting. Representative West votes aye. Representative Eccles votes aye. Everybody voted? Declare the vote. Representative Eccles, having received 6 aye, 0 nay, we will report your bill out as due to pass.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman.
Members, don't forget about our meeting scheduled for Monday morning at 9 o'clock, and seeing no further business before our committee, we are adjourned.